Hello from Patricia Glynn and Storycatcher. Simple stories, simply told. This is Potpourri, a monthly selection of short stories from the people of Southern Africa. I've collected them on the road. They're universal, they're everyday, and they're yours. This story is about yet another fascinating character living a quiet life in my valley. And you must forgive, please, that plop, plop sound of the raindrops on my canvas roof. It's the very end, tail end of a rainstorm. The first time I visited a remote bushveld farm at the foot of the Magaliesberg, where I hoped to build my tented camp, I turned off the tar onto the kind of red gravel road you encounter everywhere in Africa and pointed the nose of my 4x4 to the north. And then, after a few dusty kilometers, a little building suddenly appeared, a typical African trading store, right alongside the road, shaded by a palm tree, low, unpretentious, welcoming, its Coca-Cola sign battered by sun and rain, proudly announcing Amot and Son. I slowed the car and turned to watch the dear little store as I drove past. I decided instantly to return, meet Mr. Amot and his son, and find more stories I wanted for my Storycatcher project. I knew that lovely tales of adventure and courage were hidden inside the little duka's weathered walls. When I returned to Amot and Son some months later, after building my camp, nothing is easy in Africa, I found not Mr. Amot but his grandson, Mr. Aziz Varachia. Mr. Varachia is a charming man who wears his years with great elegance. Politely remote, he has been tempered by Africa's stern trials and is gently resigned to life's imperfections. Africa, like the sea and Islam, teaches wisdom and submission. The interior of Amot and Son is plain and echoey. Again, the similarity to other stores I've seen in other parts of Africa is quite remarkable. The place is dimly lit, has white walls and tall shelves that hold tinned veg, tinned curry, bags of rice and mealie meal, bicycle tires and inner tubes. A rackety compressor cools the Coca-Cola fridge. There are full gas bottles and glassed display cabinets containing everything from padlocks to combs. But I wanted my stories, and I got them, while Sam Malesha, his assistant of 10 years, bustled about serving customers. Mr. Varachia and I began to chat across the counter about the present and the past. But first I had to get the genealogy clear in my mind. Who was Amot? Who was the son? Where does the name Varachia come from? Mr. Varachia smiled. My grandfather was Ahmed, which in South Africa somehow became Amot. My grandfather used to call my father Amot, even though his name was really Abdul Hay Varachia. So everyone was and is a Varachia. Indeed. When I asked Mr. Varachia about what had brought his grandparents to South Africa, he replied simply, they came as labourers. Interestingly, the surname Varachia has its origins in Gujarat, a sea-coast province of India. The Gujarati word Varach means a person who is skilled or expert. Whatever the history of the Varachia's family's arrival in South Africa, Mr. Varachia's first recollection of his family's life as traders in Africa centered around the home built by his grandfather years before in the thick bush on the northern side of the Magalies River. This house doubled as the first Varachia trading store. My grandfather had 6 sons, all of whom became traders of one sort or another. My grandfather lived and traded there, out of that house, the first Indian gentleman to settle near Hekpoort. Around the late 19th century, the saga of the Varachia family takes us way up to Phalaborwa in the South African Lowveld, by which time intrepid Grandad Varachia was bartering trade goods with the Boer farmers in return for milk, butter, meat and eggs. It must have been a tough life for the family, up in the pre-dawn cold to pack trade goods into their ox wagons, rope, steel, nails, timber, spices and tobacco, inspanning 16 to 18 bullocks and setting off for the unknown. And think of how long it took. Ox wagons travelled ploddingly, covering at most 16 kilometres per day, and Potpourri was over 600 kilometres to the north, well away from the Varachia family home in the Magaliesberg Valley. 40 days and nights. It's almost biblical. I ask about Granny Varachia. Did she go on trek northwards? No, replied Mr. Varachia. She tended the original store and kept house. Brave woman, I thought. Given the snakes I encounter regularly in my own camp, she must have had a busy life in the bush. It took guts, too, to venture into the African wilderness on that northern journey. Potpourri lies in the humid tropical lowveld of South Africa, and malaria is still endemic. Bilharzia, Giardia and crocs infested the rivers, the Big Five roamed free, and in the mid-1800s the likelihood of bumping into a cocky young elephant bull or an unfriendly local with a spear was still high. I asked if there was any written family record of those perilous trips. No, said Mr. Varachia, nothing except stories, and the stories unfortunately just gradually disappeared. What, I ask, was it like to trade in the bushveld near remote Hekpoort in the old days? In the old days, Mr. Varachia says, farming was different in the Magaliesberg Valley. There was a lot of maize farmed, even wheat. In those days, he said, we had feed in stock. Cattle feed, horse feed, like a proper farm shop. But that has now died down because our poor farmers here are struggling. It's become very expensive for them to farm now. Labour costs have soared. They don't get enough money out of their farming, so most of them have given up farming. I ask him about social interaction, and he tells me that in the old days, the farmers often came to the store, had a coffee and talked about their farms, how business was going and the problems they faced. The Afrikaans farmers were different in the old days, he remembers. They were a more godly people then, more religious. They respected us, and we respected them. We had a good relationship with them, he said. We were all struggling. We struggled together, and we actually kept the poor farmers toiling on their farms. They were farming to feed their nation, so we opened books, books of credit for them, in the understanding that they should pay only when they had a good harvest. And yet, I said, this was the height of apartheid, when you couldn't go to the local cafe with them, but you could lend them money to keep them going. Seems unfair. There was no such thing as apartheid between us, says Mr. Varachia. They accepted us and we accepted them. And because of their Islamic faith, which forbids usury, the Varachias didn't charge the farmers interest. The Varachia family and other Muslims around Hekpoort were of enormous help to the local farmers. They gave credit and loans, or even donated animal feed for nothing in hard times. And what about the future, I say? I see for sale signs here. Why is that? Have you not got a son to pass the business on to? In fact, Mr. Varachia has 2 sons, Abdullahi and Imran, but they're not interested in living the life their parents lived. Nor do the Varachia's daughters, Anisa and Aisha, want to face the trials that go with rural living in present-day South Africa. The children have moved on to Johannesburg and America. Mr. Varachia smiles sadly. Things have changed, he says. There's a lot of crime out here every day now. Not a day passes but somebody's bulls are stolen, somebody's fence has been cut, somebody's house is broken into. So it's no more a place to be. You will be unsafe around here. Before it was nice, it was safe, no crime. but nowadays to live here is no more a pleasure. Mr. Varachia has started to scale down, buying less, stocking less, which explains the many empty shelves I see around me. His face is resigned as he says to me, "I can't carry on. Somehow you've got to shut down. My wife Rashida feels the same. She told me, I think we'd better sell up here." He nods. It's time to move on. We shake hands. Me, Mr. Varachia, and his assistant Sam, and I leave him and his echoing shop behind, climb into my 4x4 and reverse out. But before I drive back to my camp, I stop and look once more at the little trading store. At the height of the shop's success, Amot & Son was more than a trading store. It was a monument to decades of courage and a testament to gentle kindness, the epitome of a whole family's hopes. Almost gone now. One day the relentless bush will reclaim the building, and people passing by will say, "Wasn't there a trading store there in the old days?" Then they'll shrug and drive on. My thanks to David Lamkin for adding his novelist's touch to this story.